Hey guys, it's Jay from Pacific Northwest Sport, and I want to thank you for taking time to listen to this interview with Coach Joseph Smith, the head coach at Linfield. Coach has been over there now for 25 years, involved in some sort of capacity at Linfield. Linfield has a 67-year streak of not having a losing season, so not quite half of it, but more than a third of it. Coach Joseph Smith has been involved with making sure this streak doesn't end. But it's more than that. It's not sneaking by with, a winning record, one game over. No, it's consistently winning out on the conference, consistently making the playoffs. There's a lot that goes into it. But I think a stat that really is interesting is he's 156-28. That includes 13 Northwest Conference championships, along with 13 NCAA playoff berths. Okay. Coach, as an athlete, was impressive himself. He was a second-team NAIA All-American in 1992. He was also a 4-year starter on all those amazing Linfield teams. Langsdorf, he goes undefeated and plays in the national title in his senior season as a captain. So you really get an idea of just how competitive and the lineage of where he comes from as a player and now as a coach. I hope you guys take some time to really enjoy this podcast and just listen to the greatness that is Coach Smith. All right, I'm here with Coach Joe Smith of Linfield College. How are you doing today, Coach?
Doing great, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So I wanted to say thanks for just hopping on, and I'm really excited to speak with you about just your history with Linfield College and just your accomplishments thus far. So one of the things I was noticing is that you've had 25 years with Linfield College.
Yeah, it's been a few years, that's for sure. It's gone pretty fast.
So I want to get into why the school is so special, but I think we'll tackle that throughout this. So I guess my first thing to dive into everything was, what was your recruiting process like for you as a player, and what really sealed the deal for you to commit to Linfield?
Well, I had two coaches came down and recruited me. A guy named Ad Rutschman, who got an awful big name in the Pacific Northwest, and probably only eclipsed by his grandson Adley, who's tearing it up for the Orioles in baseball. But Coach Rutschman came down and just really impressed me right away with his authenticity, number one, but just everything he did was about excellence. And in the 80s, I think he had 3 national titles and played in a couple, I guess they didn't lose any, but he was right there pretty much every year, right near the top of the nation. And that really spoke to me. I wanted to be part of something that was, bigger than just trying to be good. I wanted to be part of something where the guys wanted it as badly as I did. And I came out of a great program, Grants Pass High School down in Southern Oregon. And back then we were really good, but we couldn't quite overtake Roseburg and Medford. Those were the powers. And so, I wanted to go to a place where we could play with the best. And I found that in Linfield. So he really spoke to me just in terms of his commitment to excellence and doing things the right way all the time. And then Jay Losey was the other guy that really recruited me there, and he was my position coach. And of course, Jay Losey is a Hall of Fame coach here at Linfield and down at Oregon State, and just a tremendous man. So those two were pretty impactful in my recruitment.
And I think it paid off for them, right? So, yeah, I mean, you were a stud at Linfield, I think is the easiest way to put it. You had second-team NAIA All-American 92, 4-year starter, 2 first-team All-Conference selection, finished with 16 interceptions, which is the 3rd most in program history. What was it like playing for Linfield at that time when things were really hopping? Because I think your class had an interesting bond, because obviously you're recruited by Rutschman, and then you play 3 seasons under him, and then your senior year you end up playing for Langsdorf. What was that like?
You've done some research. So, that was terrible. The day that Coach Rutschman decided to retire, I was floored. I just couldn't understand how Coach would do that to us, as seniors. But I say that tongue in cheek. I understand. But obviously we were really as a senior class, pretty concerned about that because he was just so good at what he did. However, all the coaches stayed, and Coach Langsdorf was a tremendous head coach and went on to be a great scout with the NFL. And we had a guy named Wes Swan who was coaching and who's gone on to coach, in the Division I level for 10 or 15 years since Linfield. And a guy named Chris Casey, who's the head coach at George Fox, he was on our staff. And, Jay Losey, just the coaching staff was amazing. So those guys were able to take over a very talented team. And we did switch offense. We went from basically Coach Rutschman's offense was I'd describe it as probably a version of had a little wing tee principle in it, but it was a little bit more, actually it had a lot of wing tee in it. And we went from that to really an option attack with a great option quarterback, Shannon Sells, and Joe Sells now, but he and a guy named Gary McGarvey. I mean, boy, we had a ton of speed, so we ran that triple option and played for a national title. So it was really a neat story where we had to bond together as a senior class and ended up going all the way to the title game. And I wish we could play that game over. That game probably bothers me more than any game in my coaching career, although that's not true. I've got a few that are up there now too, but but that was a tough game. We lost to Findlay, Ohio, and in a way that I think we still could have beaten them, but it was their day that day. So that was a great time though. As a football team, I'm still pretty close to a lot of those seniors.
So I want to dig into that a little bit. You mentioned how floored you were to see him retire and then the switch in the offense, which is super interesting when you switch from those types of different things, schematic point. But on a player level, was that switch, were you seniors looking at it as we have unfinished business? Were you looking at it as we need to help this first-year coach? Was there a little bit of resentment almost where it's like we're going to win in spite of all the adversity we're facing? What was your mindset as a player that year?
Well, we certainly weren't resentful to Coach Rutschman retiring. I mean, he kind of needed to and earned that. So there wasn't that, but I would 100% say it was a sense of adversity. Like, all right, this is going to be difficult, and we're not going to let the streak go on our watch, and we're going to have a great year in spite of this transition. And I think we were excited, on offense. I know to try something a little different. I know those guys really wanted to get after it. So I know they were excited to try that option. So it really worked out well.
You mentioned the streak. Can you explain the streak for those who may not be familiar with Linfield football?
Well, the streak we have going right now is quite long. When I was a senior, I believe it was at 37 is kind of what I want to think. I can remember doing a break on 37. That was 37 consecutive winning seasons in a row, which at the time was the longest active streak. The ones before it, I believe, were 42 by Harvard and Notre Dame, I think. So they had streaks of 42 seasons, but they had lost that. So we had the longest active streak going, and we've taken that 37 and we're at 67 right now. So 30 years later, we're still banging those things out. So now we had a COVID year in there, so I don't know, maybe my math's off because we didn't have a season in 2000. Kind of blocked that year out. That dang year didn't exist in my opinion. But so anyways, we're at 67 now, and that's pretty remarkable. We haven't just gone 5-4. We've been able to win 80% of our games for 67 years, and that's quite a mark of continued success that I'm sure proud of. And that goes back to the values that Rutschman really set here, and a guy named Paul Durham before him, and then of course Langsdorf and Losey kept those going, and now it's my staff's turn to keep that going.
And so your senior year after football was over, you actually earned the distinction as Linfield's Male Athlete of the Year. How did that come along? Who votes on that? What did it mean to you to be recognized?
Are you saying how in the world did they vote me that? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, maybe that's true. And obviously, Gary McGarvey was the best player on our team, in my opinion, that year. He was phenomenal tailback. He's in our Hall of Fame. and Shannon Sells was dominant, running that option attack, and so it was quite an honor for them. That our coaches vote for that, as well as the faculty members in the department. And so, I don't know why they picked me. I mean, obviously I had a good year and certainly was a captain on our defense and so forth. But yeah, that's something I'm proud of. That's quite an honor for all the sports to be named that.
And so after that, I saw you went over to Oregon State University and earned another degree, which, by the way, go Beavers. But from there, I noticed you started at Linfield again in '99. What was going on in that 3-year gap?
Well, in that 3-year gap, I was getting kind of my master's in sports psychology, and I knew I wanted to teach, and I got married, and for a while I was detailing cars for a little bit to make ends meet while my wife finished up some classes and I was taking classes. So we kind of had that time in your life where you're just scraping by trying to get an education in coaching. And I actually was coaching here during those times. So I was those first few years I coached linebackers here, and then somewhere around '99, I think I moved over to D-line, and I was coaching the D-line back then. So kind of did that for a while, and then I worked back to the secondary, and it was a good learning time. I was trying to figure out how to be a coach, how to recruit. Had some great veteran coaches take me under their wing and take me on the road with them and show me how to sit down with kids and lay out, how to talk about their collegiate options and sort of what life might look like and the options that were before them, and try to make a case for why they should consider Linfield. So very grateful for those learning years. And I think if you skip that, I don't know that it's important to get that foundation. I really do. And so I think most young coaches want great jobs with great responsibility right away. And it's hard to get. And quite often, I think you're better off not getting that and learning how to do it by someone that knows how to do it. So you learn to do it the right way and avoid mistakes. So I'm very grateful for those times.
And so Jay Losi, when you went over there, did he reach out to you to come coach? Did you reach out to him? How did you get into the coaching realm?
Well, I actually never left Linfield totally. I started coaching in '93 and coached linebackers. I'm remembering all this now, so long ago. But so '93 to '96, I started coaching linebackers. So yes, Coach Langsdorf came to me and said, we'd like you to coach, like you to help with recruiting. Actually, that's where it started. So my spring of my senior year, I helped him recruit, kind of went on the road, did some talks, in terms of in front of parents, like, hey, this is what a player's perspective is. This was my experience at Linfield, et cetera. Kind of a testimonial type of experience, I guess. And so we did that, and then somewhere around '96, I think I started teaching classes at Linfield after I'd gotten my master's, and that's when I kind of coached D-line from '96 to '99, and then moved over and became the D coordinator in '99, and moved back to secondary. So Coach Losi was our D coordinator, and he moved over to offense is what happened, why that opened up as the DC.
I think having you as DC kind of paid off. You were there from '99 to '05. In that time, just for those who may not know, you had the #1 defense in the Northwest Conference in scoring and total defense 4 different times. You went 60-6, made 5 NCAA Division III playoff appearances. You captured the '04 national title over Mary Hardin Baylor, and then you won or shared 6 Northwest Conference titles from 2000 to '05. So a real good stretch of dominance there. What was that like for you as a coach?
Well, it's interesting. The Linfield we went through a little bit of a lull. 92, we were awesome, right? We played for the national title. '93, we were fantastic. And then we had all these quarterback problems. We got down to our 6th-string quarterback, if you can believe that. So my first year coaching, we had a dominant defense, but we had no offense down with the 6th-string quarterback. Yes. And we went up to play Central Washington And boy, we got annihilated. They just were awesome. I mean, we didn't get annihilated. We lost by like 7, but we couldn't do anything on offense. That was 93, and then 94 we won the conference. Coach Danny Langsdorf. There's a name for you now. Danny Langsdorf was Ed Langsdorf's son, and he's I don't even know where he's coaching. I want to say Temple right now. I think he's the offensive coordinator coach at Temple. He's been at Nebraska. He was at Oregon State with Mike Riley. He's a unbelievable coach. Coached at Fresno State. He's coached everywhere. He's coached in the NFL. Coached Eli Manning with the Giants. So Danny is a great coach, but he was also a very good quarterback. And so he was our quarterback in 94, and so we were at the top of the heap. And then he got hurt in 95. Got his pec ripped apart, it actually detached from his chest, and our season just plummeted. So we went from a great team in 94 to a starting off as a great team in 95, and then we lost our everything quarterback. So we finished probably like 3rd in the conference or something, which was unheard of, right? And then we hit a lull. So 96 we weren't very good. We scraped. 97 we weren't very good. We scraped by. And then same with wherever I am at 98. But it's finally around 2000. Okay, Coach Jay Losey kind of took over our offense, and I went over to defense, and we exploded. And from 2000 to 2006, we were won a share of the league title every year, and I think we were just really dominant. We had a great passing attack, kind of changed our offense a little bit, and our defense was dominant, as you mentioned. I had some tremendously physical defenses in those years. Very, very big up front. Big and fast is a good combination on defense. And if you can be big and fast, that's pretty good at a lot of positions. And we really were. A couple of those teams were. I thought we had a national title team in 02. We ended up we lost a game. We had 5 turnovers on offense, and just a strange. One of them was the running back fumbled scoring the football. He hit the referee on the 1-yard line and fumbled. Okay, going in to score. The referee caused the fumble, and that's why we lost. So, I mean, that's a terrible loss in 02, and that was one of our better teams. We had a great team in 02. 03, we were, again, right there. I thought we had a national caliber team. We lost to St. John's, who ended up winning the title that year by 3. So we were really close to winning the whole thing in 02, really close in 03. Of course, we won it in 04. 05, I think we would have won it again, but a team called Whitewater came and beat us in a shootout. So those were 4 just incredible years where I thought we were at the top of the pyramid, so to speak, at Division III, and those were some good teams.
And so you got the head coach nod in 06. Was it just a succession plan and they knew, like, all right, we're going to hand it off over here to Joe? Did you have to apply? What was that like to become the head coach?
Well, I think just as you saw at Oregon State, I think things move fast, right? And if a program's been good, they typically want to keep it within the coaching tree because obviously the values and the way of doing things are going to remain the same. And yes, you're going to change some things, but you're going to build on that foundation. And plus the players are familiar with the coach. And so you're not going to have players leave. And so I think it's really important to make those decisions fast. So Coach Jay Losey got a chance to go down and coach with Mike Riley down at Oregon State. So he left, and within maybe a day of him telling them, I was made the coach at Linfield by Scott Carnahan. So I don't know if it was a plan, but our athletic director definitely wanted to keep it within the coaching tree, so to speak, and keep the Linfield way of doing things consistent. So went pretty fast.
Worked out pretty well. You have 12 coach of the years since then. So think the right decision was made. What was the emotion like for you when you found out you were going to be the head coach? Did you have time to react, or were you like, oh, all right, on to the next thing?
In all fairness, it was pretty fast. I remember being pretty shocked when Coach Losey told us he was leaving. He didn't necessarily want to, but felt he needed to, and I just really felt like it was the right thing to do. I guess I knew intellectually that was the right move, and not out of a sense of ego or anything like that. I just knew that was probably the right move at the time, and it was something that I needed to do for Linfield. I'm pretty loyal to Linfield. I went here, right? I love the place, so felt like that was the thing I needed to do, and I, it was a little bit surreal, I guess. Like, okay, I guess it's my turn to do this now, and let's go. So I had some great coaches on staff. A guy named Jim Nagel, that's a amazing quarterback guru in the state of Oregon. Should be in every Hall of Fame. I'm not sure. I haven't checked, but he should be. His Ashland teams were unbelievable. You want to look at a dominant football program in the state of Oregon. His 80 and 90, those era 80s and 90s Ashland football teams, they were tiny, and yet they were winning state titles against the best teams in the state. And it was because of Jim Nagel and his forward-thinking passing attack. So our offense today probably has 70% of Jim Nagel's horizontal stretch philosophy still in them. So he came and coached with us kind of on those 04, 05 teams and stayed with us for quite some time. And so I owe a lot to him. And then, of course, Jackson Vaughn's been my D coordinator. He and I have coached together for 25 years. So he's quite a defensive coach.
Was there any challenges you had when you were transitioning to head coach from a coordinator position, realizing there's a bigger picture you have to look at now?
Absolutely.
And what was one of your? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. I think, I don't believe all position coaches make good coordinators. It's a different skill set. It truly is. A position coach needs to be relationship oriented with his players, needs to be a gunnery sergeant, for lack of a better term, in terms of teaching the actual techniques at that position, whereas a coordinator needs to be removed a little bit from the fray and needs to think a little bit bigger picture. And then I think the same could be said for a head coach. I don't think all coordinators make good head coaches. In fact, I think that's quite obvious when you look at why some guys fail. They just don't have the whatever's needed. And I think a head coaching job is less scheme, and now it's back to much more relationship. It's almost closer to a position coach in terms of now it's about recruiting, it's about relationships, it's about team building, it's about developing young men in your program and making them be the best versions of themselves. And I think good coaches do that. Good head coaches do that better than average ones. And so I think that was my biggest transition. I really loved being a defensive coordinator. That was probably my favorite thing I've done in coaching. And when I became the head coach, I took 1 year actually and sort of was the D coordinator, even though I gave Coach Vaughn the title and trained him, and he and Neil Fendel to kind of take over for me. So we took a year of transition to sort of exit myself out of that. And then I moved over to offense. And so since that time, I've been coaching offense since I guess 07, the second year as a head coach. And then I eventually took over for Jim Nagel as the offensive coordinator. I gave myself, I'm not sure how many years. I could go back and look. Maybe it was 5 or 6 or something like that, to really learn play calling from the offensive standpoint and the system that I wanted to employ. And then was a coordinator there for a while, and then now I have Brett Elliott who's really doing the offensive coordinating, and he's doing a great job. But the biggest challenge for me was just moving to looking at everything, the student achievement, being involved and making sure kids are eligible, looking at our weight programs, looking at everything that touches our players. And I think you need to do that to make sure that there's positive growth in every facet of the program, because you can't neglect any of it. So.
That's great. And so what were you telling recruits and players when that transition took over and you were the head coach the next day? Was there any wavering from any of those people of like, what's going on? Or was everyone still committed to Linfield and they were ready to go?
That's a good point. I don't know. Like that's so long ago. I can't remember. That's a good question. Um, I don't really remember needing to do it that much. But you know what? That was. I don't even sure cell phones were around back then. They were just getting going, right? So, um, in those 2000 era of that decade, I mean, you're still calling parents on the parent landline, and it's a different world. Today you're calling kids or texting kids, and so there's much more contact, I guess, or direct contact. Whereas in that time, it was much more difficult to call. You'd leave a message on the voicemail as much as anything. So um, I don't know. I'm sure there was some of that. I'm sure we called all of our top recruits and let them know, hey, everything's good, everything's going to be fine. Um, I'm trying to remember when that even took place. I sort of feel like it took place after recruiting. I think you're right. I think it took place kind of late in the spring, and I do think we just were able to call the 20, 30 kids that we had signed up and let them know everything's going to be okay. We got a good plan going forward.
So your first year as a head coach, you finished 6-3. How are you able to maintain that consistency of a program that hasn't had a losing season in 67 years? How do you maintain that from a big picture of making sure? I mean, at some places, and I think Linfield's one of those, losing isn't really an option. Like you're expected to win day in and day out.
Absolutely. Well, a good example is that 06 year. We went 6-3, and the year before the prior 2 years we won the national title, and we got upset by Whitewater. I think we were number 1 or 2 in the country when we lost in 05. And in all fairness, in 06 we just weren't as good. We had some we just weren't as good, and we had problems with turnovers. I thought we had a little entitlement in the program that had kind of creeped in. Obviously, I wasn't as good a head coach. I think that you just can't get away from that. I mean, Jay was awesome. He'd been a head coach for 10 years and ish. And I think you really hit your mark pretty much in anything you do around year 10. I don't care if it's playing the trumpet or the guitar or learning the bagpipes or doing podcasts. About year 10, you're going to hit your stride typically in terms of really getting proficient at what you're doing. So, I would love to go back and redo 06 and 07. I think we had some good teams, but we went 6-3 in 06, and that was a failure. And that was a terrible year around here. Like you say that, and I'm not happy about 6-3. I mean, 6-3 might as well be 1-8, here. Same with the next year. And I think the following year we were 7-2, if I'm not mistaken. So we kind of had 3 years that were pretty, very, very average or below average for us. And we had problems with turnovers, and we had problems with just a little bit of entitlement. And it took me a while to root that out. And we actually got rid of a few kids in the program. We made a major emphasis on protecting the football and ball security. I know that sounds trite, but in 09 we led the country in turnover ratio, and we went to the semifinals. So there's a direct correlation with that. And now we also had an All-American quarterback in 09. So we had more talent, and we took care of the football, and that's a magic recipe for winning games, is take care of the football and have a lot of talent. But how do you do it year in, year out? I think it's about maximizing the talent in a system. Okay? There's only so much talent ever in a system, and how do you maximize that talent and or resources? So you either have to find a way to bring in more talent, or you have to develop that talent at a higher rate than your opponents. And sometimes you can bring in more talent and start with an advantage, and other times I think you have to get the most out of the talent that's in it and maximize that. So getting every player in the program as big, strong, and fast, technically proficient at their fundamentals, and then certainly understanding their schematics so well that you can do advanced decision making under pressure. And so those are the things that really lead to wins on the field, is making advanced decisions under pressure, performing with great velocity, acceleration, and power in an efficient way, right, with your technique. And you do that enough, and you string enough of those plays together, well, that's how you win. And so that's really what we're trying to do is see how many plays we can be great on with technique, fundamentals, and assignments. And if we do the preparation in the off season and develop the horsepower and the velocity and the speed that we need, then it's a matter of our technique and a matter of just going out and competing. And then at some point you got to get lucky. You got to have some breaks go your way too. So
you mentioned talent and you mentioned system, and those are really interesting to me because when you're recruiting, I guess this really feeds into it. Are you looking for the most talented guys, knowing that you have full confidence in your coaching staff that you can make the pieces fit? Or are you looking for a guy who, sure, he may not be, the best quarterback or the best whatever, but he's going to be great in your system. Therefore, the system runs itself almost.
Well, I appreciate the question because I think that's two philosophies, and I think you see programs do either of those. I think if you're tied to, let's say, an extreme example like Air Force, where you're going to run that double slot option offense, and we're going to, okay, well, then you need to probably recruit to that system because it does. Kids are better. There's just some uniqueness about that system, and there's the quarterback play, even the running backs and the wings, like they are those kind of four skill positions: the fullback, the quarterback, and the two wings are going to be a certain style of player. You're not going to put you just are, and so I think you got to recruit to that. We would be the first thing you said. I want the best players we can possibly find that have the high character that we're looking for. So I want kids that, number one, love football. If they don't love football, Jay, I don't want them. Let's just stop now. If you don't love football, then let's quit talking. And so they got to love it, because if they love it, I'm not having to make them go lift, make them have to do stuff. I don't want to make kids do stuff. I want kids to want to do it. And if they love it, then they're going to want to do it. So they got to love football, because college football is so much more preparation than it is playing. High school football is the ratio is a lot more play to practice. College is a lot more practice and prepare and train than it is playing. Like it's just a crazy ratio. So we got to have kids that love football, and then yes, we want character, and then we want talent, and we can't start with the talent, because if they don't love football and they don't have character, then the talent's going to hurt us. The kid's going to hurt us. So that's kind of the order we're looking for. But I want kids with great talent, and then we will fit the scheme around them. So, yes.
So you're willing to adapt the scheme and have it develop as you get in those talented guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have we need the best. Now it's hard, right? I mean, how much do you change the system for one kid? They better be really good to do that and really warrant that. But we've had teams that are much more run-based oriented. We've had teams that are much more throw-it oriented. We've had more option running style quarterback play, and we've had more pocket play. So, in 09 to 011, Aaron Bomey was an unbelievable runner. Now he could pass and run, so he was unreal. So he's an All-American for us, right? So he could do everything, but we had a lot more option in our system for him. And then in the next 2 years, I guess 11 and 12, Mickey Inns was also an All-American for us, but he was a pocket passer. He didn't want to run at all. So, I mean, he did not want to run. So he's going to sit in the pocket, take hits, and stand in there and throw under pressure. And he was awesome at it. And so we changed our offense, greatly for him. Well, then in 13, when Mickey was done, we had another All-American quarterback, and he was a beast, 6'4", probably about 225, kid from Canby, and All-American, and boy, Mr. Yoder could run, and he could throw the ball a mile, but he wasn't necessarily a drop back precision system passer. He was a shot guy that could run, and so we wanted to get him out of the pocket, let him run and throw, and he was prolific at it. So all those offenses were 50-point offenses, but just doing it different. And so I think you have to build the offense around the quarterback and what he can do. And then, of course, your tailbacks and your receivers.
So you mentioned when you're looking for recruits, one of the things, maybe the most important beyond character, is they love football. how do you as a coach know that someone loves football? What's something that when you're watching tape, you go, yeah, that kid loves it? Or is it something where you have to talk to the kid and you really have to know, like, all right, we got to talk a little bit to make sure your what you're saying is actually coming through?
Yeah, I don't know how you can see it on film. I guess maybe you can sometimes, but with huddle, I don't know that you can. You almost see that stuff more in the huddle breaks, or the transition from the field on and off the field, things like that. But um, I've seen plenty of kids that I thought loved football that once we sat down and did an interview and spent time with them, obviously they didn't. And it's something I flat ask them too. Like, you got to tell me, like, how much do you love this? Or, well, I really like track and I like, okay, well,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? If there's several other things that are right there with football, okay, you don't really love football. I mean, football needs to be your thing, that you love, and you can't wait to do it. And so I think it's an interview, and I think it's spending time with them for sure. That's
great.
a good point. And also recommendations. I mean, I think we rely still in football so much on talking to the high school coaches, and in all fairness, that's probably the single biggest thing that helps us weed kids out or help us get excited about kids is a personal recommendation from a coach we know and that we trust. And so, over as long as I've been here, the coaches that send you good guys, and the coaches that don't. And so who to trust in terms of their evaluations and what type of kids they're turning out. That says a lot. And so I think continually recruiting the same area really helps, because the coaches get to know the individual recruiters, and then the recruiters get to know the coaches, and I think it helps both sides immensely. So I really believe in continuity in recruiting areas, so that you can develop those relationships with the coaches to get the recommendations that you're talking about.
So you mentioned, some coaches who are going to send you some mixed reviews, and some guys who are spot on with their reviews. In the past, if you've been scorned on a guy where you're like, dude, this was not what I was told, how do you trust the next player they're sending to you? Or do you have to look into it a little bit deeper to make sure this is really a guy?
I think that's the case. I think we just want to look in a little deeper and spend a little more time with them and see if in fact that holds true. Yeah.
Okay. So, since you've taken over, you are 156-28 in your win-loss record. It includes 13 Northwest Conference championships and 13 NCAA berths. You're 105-6 in conference play. You talked about entitlement. Sometimes when you're expected to win and you haven't lost to a conference opponent in 20 years, whatever it may be, the team can start to overlook that a little bit. Clearly, your record does not indicate that's happened many times. So how are you as a coaching staff making sure that, hey, we're not overlooking these guys, even if they're winless?
Right. Well, I've been on. I was on ESPN one time for this. They asked me the exact same question you did. So, good question. And I think it's 100% about you, and what we're trying to do here is continually talk about development, and I really try to get our guys to judge our performance, if you will, and measure it on a not on outcome, so not on the scoreboard and not win loss, but really on the quality of our performance. And so what they call a self-referent measure of performance, and I so did we play up to our potential? Did we play well relative to what we could have done? And if we did, then I'll take the win or loss. You know what I mean? If we didn't, then you leave upset whether we won or lost again. Now, certainly, I like winning a lot more than losing. Without question, I hate to lose. There's no question about that. But I also really want our guys to play up to their potential. So as long as we're talking about that all the time, and we're trying to develop to the point where we could stand before the best in the country and be measured, and the best in the country, they just look different than the teams we're playing out here. They just do. They're bigger, stronger, and faster, and better looking in their uniforms, and They got more guys that look like the model at Dick's Sporting Goods, that's got that uniform on them. I mean, there's more muscles, right? And the guys just are bigger and they're faster. And so, we have to develop to the point where we can go toe to toe with those kids from Texas, because the kids in Texas can flat run and they're physical. And we got to be able to stand before the big boys in the Midwest, because they're bigger. They're going to be bigger than everybody else, just like they are at the Division I level. They're the biggest kids in the country, and they will push you around if you don't have the mechanics to stand that, or just enough horsepower, etc. So, those are the teams that we're trying to impress upon our guys, each week. Like, hey, that's what we're building towards. We're building to a point where, yes, we have a game today, but we need to use this game to get better so that we can stand before these great teams that we know are coming down the road. And so I think that's helped us maintain our consistency and our continuity.
For building your program up and finding that consistency and continuity, how are you finding these kids? Or do you have coaches who are going out and looking and, looking at regions? Are you relying a lot on these kids to get a hold of you through the website? How are you banking on that?
Well, it's honestly, it's a lot of work. So no, we're not counting on kids reaching out to us. Yeah, yes, that happens a little bit. It does. I think the more that you're on TV, the more that you win, the more you're in the paper. Yes, kids reach out to you. I think kids that want to be part of something excellent are attracted by excellence. They want to be around other people that are successful. So they're, successful kids are going to be attracted to other successful places, and they're going to be leery of going to a place that's in a rebuilding mode every year, right? So I think that's part of it, but mostly we have coaches that all have an area. And so, for instance, I was in 72 high schools last year, in Oregon. So I'll be in the same amount this year, within, plus or minus 10. And I have coaches that go up to Washington. We kind of hit the Washington schools. We hit Oregon. We hit Northern California, kind of do all that in person. And then we send coaches to Hawaii as well. So those are really the 4 Western states that we put boots in the ground, for lack of a better term, in the schools, meet the kids there in the schools, size them up, get in front of them, shake their hand, talk about Linfield. And then we go back and watch all their films. And while we're there, of course, we talk to the coaches about them and answer some of the questions you and I had just mentioned. And if all that's a go, then we watch the film. And if we like them, then we get back in touch and say, hey, this is a good fit for us. Now you've got to decide if we're a good fit for you. And if we are, then let's come to a game day visit in the fall. And then they come in the fall. And we had, 40 kids probably at every game this fall. And then our home games. And then after the season's over, we start our official visits. So we're starting those this Friday. And so now kids come and spend the night and meet the players, and we meet the parents and spend as much time as we can with them to help them get a great feel if this is the best place for them. Because I only want kids coming here if they're convinced it's the best place for them. If they're not, then they need to go where they're convinced is the best place for them to grow and develop. And because I don't want kids to come here and be unhappy. So we don't really try to talk kids into coming. We really just try to say, hey, this is who we are. This is what we believe in. This is what it's going to be like if you're to come here. And do you like it? If they do, then all right, let's do it. So that's really kind of our approach.
Amazing. So consistency's worked out. Your legacy speaks for itself. You have 156 career coaching victories, second all time at Linfield. I did the math for you. So you're behind by about 26 games to add Rushman. If you go undefeated and win the next 2 national titles, you'll be a perfect 26-0, meaning you'll have matched him. Coach, what do you think? I mean, you've been coaching for a long time. Clearly, you still have more years left in you, but how many more do you think? We got 10, 15 more years, or we coach till the wheels fall off? What do you think?
Well, the wheels are never falling off, so they're not falling off here. I mean, they might fall off of me, but the wheels aren't falling off at Linfield. I will make sure that never happens. I got to coach for quite a while. I don't have enough money, so I got to work. I just put 3 kids through college, so my youngest finally just graduated, so we're finally through with college tuition and that sort of thing. So that's exciting. But no, mean, I don't know what the future is going to hold, but absolutely, I love this place, and we're going to keep coaching till they tell me to leave, or I don't think I can do it well anymore. So if that day comes, then yeah, I'll step down and let someone else do it better than I.
Well, and speaking of your children, I know your daughter graduated from Carroll College, I believe I was seeing, and then your
Yeah.
two sons both played for you at the collegiate level over here. It says Wyatt was an All-American quarterback 2 years in a row, or I believe in 2022, he was your team MVP 2 years in a row. And then your youngest son, Colton, completed a senior year last season over at Linfield as wide receiver. What's it been like coaching those guys and having that extended time?
Well, it was quite. Honestly, it was awesome. It's hard to put into words, and certainly, made it pretty special and unique for me. Josie, my daughter, didn't want to date one of my football players. So she would have probably been a Wildcat, but she didn't want to have that relationship. So she went to Carroll, and I'm real proud of her. She's doing great, but she's the world's #1 Wildcat fan, so she's awesome. Any good coach's daughter will be, right? So she still watches every game and follows it like crazy. But but Wyatt, was really really pretty amazing for us at quarterback, and that was quite a story. He came and had a lot of opportunities to play other places, but he wanted to play baseball too. So some of the larger schools that wanted him to play football weren't going to let him play baseball. So Linfield allowed him to play both, and I was very anxious to have him play here because I knew he'd be good. And then he was thrust into a starting spot as a freshman. So kind of late in the year, we had some quarterback difficulties and a couple injuries, and he came in and kind of saved our season, and we ended up being pretty good. We won a couple games that year and beat a top 5 team in the country. I was very, very proud of that from Texas. And then we ran into Mayor Hardin-Baylor, who won the national title that year. So they knocked us out that year. But so he had a great, that was pretty special. And then 18, we were down a little bit talent-wise at some of the receiver spots, and so we didn't have as much firepower in the gun that year. But I thought we had a good, solid year. And then Brett came in, and he and Aaron Bomey, I kind of made them co-coordinators, and boy, the offense took off. That 2019 year, we led the country in passing, and so we were the #1 passing offense in the country, and we were slinging it all over the place. And I thought Wyatt was just devastating that year, and Colton was a freshman, so Colton through that time had a whole bunch of offers at FCS schools, and looked like he led the state in Oregon in passing and receiving. So I didn't think we were going to get him. And then it just kind of worked out that financially it was better for him to come here, and then he wanted to play with his brother. And so we kind of thought, well, let's come. And if you want to transfer after a year or two, go ahead, but let's give it a shot. So he jumped on the scene, and he ended up being kind of our #1 option that year, and was pretty much uncoverable. He had a phenomenal freshman year and tore it up. And he with that receiving core was pretty special that year in 19. And then COVID hit, and we had this weird pause, right? We didn't play any games in 2020. It was terrible. But what we did is we practiced for 22 weeks. Okay? We practiced for 12 weeks in the fall and 10 weeks in the spring, and we got better. And I rebuilt the whole receiving core, because really all the receivers left off that, or graduated off that 19 team, except for Colton. So we had him back, but he was hurt. He'd gotten hurt, and he really was struggling with his legs. So we had to rebuild the receiving core. And I used that time to really get that going. And then, gosh, the 2021 team was arguably probably my strongest team that I've fielded, in my opinion. And we really were a good football team. Now we ended up losing to Mayor Hardin-Baylor, who again won the national title. But man, we threw for 400 yards on that defense and scored more points in one game than they'd given up, I think, in 7 or 8, combined. So I was really proud of our guys that year, and that was a fun, special team. And so those guys were a big part of that. Having Wyatt graduate, obviously was Blake Eaton stepped in and did a great job, and Colton was able to play the last couple of years, and I think he finished. Wyatt finishes kind of #1 in most categories. Him and Brett Elliott passing wise, and Colton's I think second and third in a bunch of receiving ones. So it's been pretty special and quite surreal in some ways for me as a dad and a coach. So
That's great. So what was it like watching them throw and catch with each other? Were you just like, yeah, I've been watching that since Little League?
I have. I mean, there's a lot of time in the street and in our house. You know, we had this couch in our living room that was completely destroyed. Like it had 2x4s in the frame, and they were all broken when I got rid of that from all the diving catches on the couch. And so those two spent a lot of time throwing together, and that was pretty neat to watch them play with one another. Now, you know, they'd argue about this pass wasn't perfect, or you know, you weren't open, or whatever, like brothers do. But that was pretty fun to watch. Yeah.
Great. Well, I don't want to take up too much time. I got 5 questions to end that we like to ask everybody if you have time for them.
Sure.
All right. So first one is you're at a gas station. You're going to go on a super long road trip here. What's your go-to snack and drink for the road trip?
Oh, no question. It's going to be the biggest Pepsi or Coke they can find. I'd prefer Coke, although maybe I'd prefer Pepsi now or RC. But and then for sure, sunflower seeds. Give me some sunflower seeds and some sort of cola, and I'm good to go.
Now, is there a certain flavor? Is there a certain brand of sunflower seeds?
You know, I was a David guy forever. Now I coached baseball for a long time, right? So sunflower seeds are going to be your thing if you coach baseball. So I was a big David guy, but I do like the Spits quite a bit. You know, I love the black pepper. You know, I like those. It's probably my favorite.
Can't beat it. Who's your favorite athlete of all time?
Oof. I got to go with Bo Jackson. You know, Babe Ruth, hard to get away from with his dominance. Lester Hayes was kind of my idol growing up as a young player in football. Ricky Henderson was kind of my idol in baseball. I do like Magic Johnson and I got lots, right, and Michael Jordan, but there's been nobody on the face of this earth that could do the stuff that Bo Jackson did. And football and baseball, he was pretty remarkable. So I'd have to go with Bo.
What's your favorite time of the year besides football season?
Is there any other time? I mean, it's football season and then the rest of the time, right? Obviously, for a football coach, it's football season and then it's July. And July is sort of the month that most coaches take off. So that's going to be your time that you're boating or camping. And I love to boat down on Lake Shasta. That's kind of our family's place. So I'm a big water recreation guy.
All right. What's your favorite sports team at the high school, college, and pro level? But here's the thing. You can't pick anywhere you've played or anywhere that your kids are at. Although I'll give you a pass on college if you want to go with Carroll. But what are they?
You mean I got to do one of each? You said?
Oh, yeah. One high school, one college, one pro.
Oh, goodness. Well, high school, huh? Well, I've been rooting for well, shoot, I gotta be politically correct on the high school. I can't. It's hard for me to call out a high school, right? With all the coaches we have everywhere.
You got Jim Nagel over at Ashland for a couple of years.
Well, yes, but he's long since retired there. You know, I've got kind of a special place for West Albany High School. There, you know, we've got an alumni down there, and I like their little program. I mean, I like that place, West Albany Bulldogs. The college, you know, I've been a big Beaver supporter. I like the Beavers. I got a lot of respect for what they do. So we'll go with the Beavers. And then pros, you know, the Raiders have been my team since I was a kid, Oakland Raiders, but now they're the Vegas Raiders. And they went from having a commitment of excellence to being a great program to just breaking their fans' hearts for 10 years of just being terrible at what they do. So it's hard to support the Raiders anymore. But, you know, out of loyalty, I guess I got to go with them, but begrudgingly.
I will say I do have a Seahawk uniform here. I do root for them, but I actually am a diehard Raider. If you saw the rest of this room, it's decked out in Raider stuff. So I understand the pain there. Fired Josh McDaniels. Happy about it now. It's interesting.
Yeah, honestly, I am too. I thought he was but what coach has been good for them lately? I mean, good Lord, they've just had a terrible run of mediocrity. So, I mean, Gruden was their guy, and he had them winning, and he was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things happen. Well, the last question, this one. So, are you a country music fan at all?
I am.
Okay, so Luke Combs been taking over the world the past 6 years. So he has a song called "Doing This," and it opens up and it just goes, "Someone asked me once in an interview, what was growing up like? Where'd you go to school? And what would you do if you weren't doing this?" So my question to you is, if you weren't a coach, if you weren't being successful over there at Linfield, what would you be doing right now?
Well, I grew up wanting to be Indiana Jones and being an archaeologist. So that was one of the things I thought I would do. I have quite the artifact collections of antiquity, etc., that I kind of grew up looking for and exploring and stuff like that. So that's probably what I'd be. I'd probably be an archaeologist.
That is awesome.